episode of the Rick and Danny Show. We have a very special guest today. Dr. Karawadia is on the show. We're very excited to have him tell us a little bit about his practice and some projects that he's involved with. Rick, how you doing over there?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I'm just glad, we got someone finally better looking than us to join us on this podcast video and going to provide us with a lot of cool information of what he's been doing on the research side for CSNF. But before we get into that, Dr. Karawadia, do you mind introducing yourself to the audience and kind of giving a brief overview of your background and kind of where you practice at Cancer Specialists?
Thank you, guys. Very excited to be here. First podcast ever, so forgive me if the voice doesn't come through or I make few mistakes. But yes, I am practicing oncologist at Cancer Specialists of North Florida at the Middleburg in the Clay office. Been with the practice for almost 4 years. Before that, I was in training in New York, Long Island. I finished my fellowship from Stony Brook University Hospital, and since then been practicing here in Clay. And today I was excited to discuss about our recent research that we have published and presented at the NCCN's annual conference.
Now, we really appreciate you taking the time. We know you're extremely busy, have a very full practice and young family, so we know it's a lot to call in and talk about this stuff. But before I just had a quick question for you before we get into the project. How did you find time to do this, running a busy community practice?
So I think it wasn't all me. I think I have to give a shout out to my co-authors, Dr. Teliwala and Dr. Chatrala. They helped me out. And how it kind of started is we were seeing a pattern in the clinic where certain patients, after getting certain treatments, were having some more side effects. And we kind of thought that maybe this is something we could look into, and then kind of did more research. And as we go more into research, discussing about the topic, we'll come to that. But it honestly was something that was just from here in our own CSNF clinic across the board, all clinics, and something that is unique. There is no research like this done before on this topic. So I think I'm very proud that this was something initiated by us through our patient care. And coming to the time, I think we took around 4 or 5 months, did it very slowly, but finally it kind of came through. And then when we applied for it, we were thrilled that it was got accepted at a national conference.
And that's great. Yeah, and this is a little bit different than what we're used to in terms of our research at CSNF. We have a research program that does clinical trials, and we're involved in a lot of industry-sponsored trials. But this is your own project amongst the three of you to kind of come up with an idea and then use patient data to kind of find out if there's something that might be practice changing or somewhat influential in how we treat our patients. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. I think, yes, it is a bit different than the clinical trials we do. I think we as CSNF have been very lucky that we offer these trials to our patients because these are local offices. We can give it close to their home. But this research was more of a retrospective study, meaning, study that we look behind and look at charts and see how patients did. And kind of find a trend and see if that can, for future clinicians, if it helps them to kind of change their practice or be more vigilant about side effects, because that's what the research was about.
Can you just walk us through kind of high level for the audience, sort of what was the question you're asking and sort of what you talked a little bit about the methodology, but just sort of what's the question you were asking and sort of what conclusions y'all came to?
Sure. And I think, just to the title of our research was Impact of PD-L1 Expression on Immune-Related Adverse Events. And we did research mainly in lung cancer, non-small cell lung cancer. And I think before I go, I'll just do a brief on immunotherapy per se, because that's where this PD-L1 expression comes in account as so immune therapy has been a revolution in all cancer types. And this basically is a treatment that's given in lung cancer patients and in many other cancer patients that stimulates your own immune system, kind of unblocks or releases the brakes on immune system and kind of treats the cancer cells through the immune system. And it was first approved, the checkpoint inhibitors, what they are called, but they were first approved in 2011 for a type of a skin cancer called melanoma. But now we have approval over 20, 25 different cancer types. So pretty much all medical oncologists use immunotherapy one way or the other. So I think this implications, although are on lung cancer, but there are more research likely will go into this, and it can apply to other types once we know if this trend that we have found is actually practice changing or not. Coming to the research, what I had seen many times in clinic was patients who had a higher marker for immunotherapy called PD-L1. What I was seeing more side effects in the clinic. And one after one, I was seeing more. So I thought maybe there is a trend. So I first started doing some literature search, but did not see any data like that. And then that came the idea that if we have enough patients in our own practice, let's do our own research and see if there is a trend. And what we kind of did was we got around two years of time frame where we studied around 304 patients. And question we asked was as simple as that: if you had higher PD-L1 expression, which is a marker on how well you will respond to on different kind of treatments, on immunotherapy treatments, if you had a higher PD-L1 expression, would you have a higher chance of a side effect from the immunotherapy also? The hypothesis was that if you had to stimulate immune system to kill cancer cells, it would be very active and also have slightly higher risk of side effects on other organs because the immune system is very active and can have bystander effects on other organs. And that's what the question we asked. And we did a chart review of almost 304 patients. And almost we found that there was a higher risk for as people who had higher PD-L1 expression. There was a 38% chance of having a side effect versus people who had lower expression had a 28% chance of having side effects. So it was like a relative risk of 35% increase. And it showed that if you had a higher marker, it would lead to a slightly higher risk of having side effects. So it kind of tells clinicians to be very vigilant on these patients for side effects of immunotherapy. So kind of that's the gist of our research. And we just presented it this year in March at the National Comprehensive Cancer Network's annual conference in Orlando. And I had talked to many NCI directors. They were very impressed that, it came out from a community oncology practice.
Yeah, to go off of, thanks for the summary there, Tejas. I think what were some of the main kind of feedback? What kind of feedback did you receive at the conference? Was there, information that you received that, other practices also kind of saw this trend, or what did some of the other practitioners tell you?
No, I think that is a very good point you brought up. I think I spoke to many other practices, and I think since, as I said, this was a first of its kind of research in this space, there is so a lot of practices were thinking, how can we do this in a prospective way? Mm-hmm. Because the level of evidence is much better when you have a prospective trial than when you're looking back. So I think there was two practices who actually had got a lot of data from our research, and they were going to plan to implement to see if they can do it in a prospective way. So that was one thing I think it would be cool to look at, is see if it's really happening in a prospective trial also. Mm-hmm. Other thing I think a couple of practices also told me was they when they look at it, they do see more of these side effects, but they don't know the grading of it, meaning are they milder side effects or are they major? And that was one of the drawbacks of our research, because we were not able to grade these side effects. So that was some of our limitations on our research, was that we couldn't say, okay, this 35% increase in the side effects, was it just because of just that, it's a milder reaction or a severe reaction? So to me, that makes a huge difference, because if it's a milder
Right.
reaction, clinicians are mostly like to continue. But that was one limitation we had in our research. And I think that's where more data collecting and more prospective trials can help and kind of delineate this, that is it really just a trend, or is it an actual fact, and we need to keep more looking into it.
Yeah, you're limited to the documentation and whether the patient was hospitalized or not, or, that's kind of how you were digging into the chart review, correct?
Right, exactly. And we will look, and then mostly when you have a side effect, it's reported as a side effect, but not as a grade. So you're just looking, okay, patient has this side effect, then it's likely 1, 2, 3, 4. It's very hard to look at the chart. And when you're especially looking over 300 charts, it's kind of becomes hard to kind of figure it out looking at the paper.
Right.
But I think that would be something to look into, is how severe were they? Because that to me can affect patient care, and then directly make clinicians aware on how vigilant they want to be on watching these patients if they were higher on the PD-L1 marker side.
Did you guys see any relationship in the patient, those 304 patients, with the side effects reported and response rate? Any association there? Because there's some thought that, certain immune reactions, toxicities might be in patients who are having a better response.
Right. And I think the trial was not, or actually the study was not designed that we were looking at survival was better on people who had reaction rate. But if you were to just ask me when we were reviewing, or at least I was reviewing the data, I did see that those patients were relatively doing well. Even some of them were off therapy, but they're still doing well. So, kind of goes with that hypothesis that you have a hyper functioning immune system. Obviously, it's going to kill your cancer cells, but also have side effects, but that may be translating into a better response. And that in that field, I think there are trials which have shown that.
And that's my question as the non-medical oncologist. My understanding is sometimes maybe not a one-to-one, but the higher the expression of PD-L1 usually predicts for a more robust, or at least some response to immunotherapy. So maybe it all kind of goes hand in hand to both of your points.
No, agree. Yeah, I think looking at it, and I think there are a couple of trials proving that too. So I think this was more on the side effect side, but you're right. I think more the expression, more the robust response, more long lasting and better efficacy of the treatment.
Yeah, that's always a difficult thing in practice when you have a patient with a high grade toxicity. When we talk about high grade, we mean the patient might need hospitalization due to the side effect, and then you have to calm down the immune system because it's so overactive that it's making the patient ill and hospitalized. We do not want to blunt the effect, the anti-cancer effect, but it's a very hard balance to achieve, because first line management of those side effects with checkpoint inhibitors is corticosteroids. And then sometimes we use other immunosuppressants, but it is a hard balance. And I think the future is trying to find drugs that, calm the immune system down to alleviate side effects, but still maintain the response.
No, I agree. And I think likely you would have seen the same. It's like you don't want to suppress the immune system, but don't want the patient to get sick. It's kind of a two-edged sword where you want to make sure you get a good response, but when patients are getting sick. So I do, that dilemma always comes when they really have these side effects. And I think to your point, I think, that would be where we find these drugs where they are obviously efficacious, but have a minimal toxicity.
I just commend you guys for, especially you, Tejas, for having a question that you came up with in clinic and then translating that to objective findings. I think is pretty cool, and that you were able to find the time to make it all happen.
Thank you, man. Thank you. No, I think it was collaboration. Wouldn't be fair, but I think yes. I think that's the beauty of working in a clinic like us. Where we see every kind of patient, and we want, if we want to do something, I think CSNF that way is very good. We have a good backup system. We can get all the data we need. So I think our collaboration and our nature of all the physicians, just to ask them, have you seen this? I asked almost 10 physicians in the group saying, have you ever seen this? And everybody was answering me right away. So I think to me it's we have a good team of doctors, and I think hopefully more things like this to come up as we move along.
Yeah, that was my next question. What's next on the agenda? Is you taking this? Is there another step you're taking this in terms of further research, or sort of using this as a springboard for others, maybe to see if we can verify across multiple practices, or where do you see this going?
So, I think that's what I was thinking is if there is any way we can prospectively do this, where we, kind of watch these patients, it would still be an observation study. So it's not like we're actually giving any different drug. And I think that's where we want to kind of extrapolate this and see if we really find, because in terms of data strength, if you look at different researches, retrospective is a lower value data than you have a prospective trial or a prospective study. So I do want to confirm these, and that's, I think, the next step.
Hypothesis generating, as they say.
Yes.
And
That's true.
I find something in the clinical trials, like when you're looking at lung cancer and PD-L1 expression, sometimes the trials just categorize the individuals into these groups of, say, PD-L1 expression of 1 to 49, and you don't really know where that patient fell. Did they fall at 2%? Did they fall at 47% expression? And that, I think, makes a big difference in practice, looking at what you're looking at from a toxicity standpoint. So even teasing it out in the phase 3 trials that have been reported can be difficult. Where did each patient actually fall in the PD-L1 expression range?
Right.
So it's not easy to even pick it out of a trial.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think since there's just two broad categories of more than 50%, less than 50%, it's hard to know what is the 75%, how well they're going to do, how well the 25% is going to do. And I think that's why we actually chose lung cancer for this trial, is because that's the only cancer type where the approvals are more than 50% and less than 50%. So you kind of could delineate those patients. Otherwise, in some other cancers like melanoma, there is no cutoff at all. So then it's very hard to separate from a chart review basis. So I think that's a good point you brought up, Danny.
Yeah. How do you like practicing in Florida compared to New York? Obviously, you were in fellowship in New York.
Loaded question. Loaded question.
I like the sun and weather, I think, for sure. I think that's the reason we moved. Because the cold, I grew up in India, so I never got used to that much of cold. But we love it here. We have a young family. The boys love it here. So, and then, I'm lucky enough to find a good practice like CSNF. So you guys have, everybody who has been here has been a great mentor, and kind of, learning from people who have been practicing for 20, 30 years. It's an amazing experience so far.
Well, we appreciate you again taking the time to come on the podcast, tell us about your research, and keep doing what you're doing, man. Nothing but attaboys, and congratulations.
Thanks, man. Thanks. Thank you for having me. This was less intense than I expected.
I told you it was easy.
We're laid back here. No pressure.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for having me. Okay.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for coming
See you,
on.
Tejas.
All right.
Talk to you soon.
Bye. Thank you.
See you, buddy. Bye.
Bye.
Well, that concludes another episode of the Rick and Danny Show. Appreciate you listening. Hope you enjoyed our special guest.
It was a great conversation, Rick. We hope to do it again with Dr. Karawadia, learn about his next research endeavors and success. We'll talk to everyone soon.
Take care.